Right, welcome back to the Watch, Play, Listen vlog on YouTube. I've neglected it a bit lately and all I really used to do was put Walking Dead videos on there. So I'm going to change that by talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There are 10 films in now with the release of Guardians of the Galaxy last week. So I'm going to run down my list of 10 to 1 of my favourite Marvel Cinematic Universe films. So there'll be no X-Men 2, Spider-Man 2, First Class or Days of Future Past, which probably would all make it in. There'll also be no Daredevil, Elektra or anything like that, but probably wouldn't make it in. But starting off then, I will start off with my number 10 movie, which featured this little lady, introduced her to us, and that was basically the best thing about the film. It is of course Iron Man 2, directed by Jon Favreau, who I actually met recently and interviewed at, over on Flicks and the City's YouTube. You can watch that if you fancy it. But it's just a bit of a mess of a film, to be honest. I really don't like this film at all. Obviously it introduced a lot of the stuff which then paid off down the line, so I can't be too harsh on it. But it was pretty awful. I mean, yeah, Whiplash and all that, that was just rubbish. I'm not very keen on Iron Man as a character anyway, as you'll probably find out with the sort of low placings in this list. I don't really like Robert Downey Jr. either, to be honest. But yeah, so my number 10 film is Iron Man 2. Okay, moving on then. Number 9 is the film that people sort of forget about really and don't really include in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is of course The Incredible Hulk, not to be confused with Hulk that came in about 2000, 2001 or something. So The Incredible Hulk came around. It was Ed Norton, of course, not Mark Ruffalo, who we obviously know and love from the Avengers. More on that later. But it's not an amazing film. It's not a terrible film. Whereas I think Iron Man 2 is actually a bad film, I think all the rest of these films are pretty decent, getting to amazing. But The Incredible Hulk, I think, is just a bit of an average film, to be honest. Ed Norton's fine. He's obviously no Mark Ruffalo, but he's fine. It's got Ty Burrell in it, Phil Dunphy, which gives it some bonus points for me. But it's just a bit unremarkable, to be honest. It's sort of a 6 out of 10 type film, I would say. So that's my number 9 then, The Incredible Hulk. Moving on then to the top 8, and we got our first introduction to this little character, Steve Rogers, obviously Captain America. So this film at number 8 then is Captain America: The First Avenger. So again, it's quite a good film. I've watched it a couple of times, watched it again recently. It's sort of, I like all the period stuff. I love Hayley Atwell. I like Sebastian Stan, of course. More on him later. Tommy Lee Jones is good as a sort of deadpan kind of army captain. And as I say, I like the period stuff. I like the transformation as well from weedy Steve Rogers to hench Steve Rogers. But there's things in the film I don't like. I find it a bit boring, a bit humorless. I think Tommy Lee Jones' sort of deadpan lines are the funniest thing in the film. It's not a very funny film like a lot of the kind of Marvel films. Red Skull I don't really like at all either. He's a bit of a kind of, he feels a bit out of place in the movie. It's quite a serious tone, as I just sort of mentioned, but he's very comic book and in all the bad ways. Obviously that can be a good thing, but in that sense I think it's just a bit dull. I know someone on Twitter actually, Rob Cook, it's your favourite Marvel film, I think, until Guardians, but yeah, I'm not very keen on that one. So, moving on then, we've done 10, 9 and 8, so number 7 obviously comes next, which is this old fella again. It's the original Iron Man, the film that kicked it all off then in 2008. It was Jon Favreau again, and it was him that pushed for Robert Downey Jr. to be cast, and the rest is history. All of these films have come because of this film, essentially. It's an amazing project that Kevin Feige sort of masterminded, bringing these things together. It just seems logical now. Obviously Warner Brothers are doing it with DC films, trying to bring characters together. There's talk of doing it with like King Kong and Godzilla and kind of the Mummy and all that world the Universal are trying to do. It's very in vogue at the moment. Everyone wants their own sort of Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yeah, Iron Man kicked all that off. It was a surprise film for me because I didn't have much interest in the Iron Man character at all before that started. But it's a really good film actually. I really do like that film, despite not liking Iron Man. So yeah, not much more to say, it's just a good film. Yeah, moving on then, and we're on to number 6, and we're on to the last Avenger to be featured here in their own standalone film, and that's Thor, the original Thor, directed by Kenneth Branagh. This obviously introduced Chris Hemsworth as Thor, who's just the perfect casting, and obviously Tom Hiddleston as Loki as well. I know it kind of went viral, the kind of story that when it was announced that Hemsworth and Hiddleston were cast. Marvel cast unknown in Thor movie, and it was kind of, it's just laughable now because they're so perfect for their roles. Yeah, I really like that film. Natalie Portman's in it and Kat Dennings are in it, so that's partly why I like it, I'll be honest. But yeah, it's funny, it's just a really good film. It introduces Hawkeye as well, which is cool. Yeah, the original Thor was a good film. Very kind of Shakespearean, as you'd sort of expect from Kenneth Branagh. They've obviously got some really interesting directors amongst these. I haven't mentioned them all by name, but yeah, they've done well with those. Moving on then to the top 5, and we have the most recent Iron Man film. So this is the Phase 2 Iron Man film, which is Iron Man 3. Came after the Avengers, and Tony's sort of keeps having all these flashbacks and sort of trauma from the events of New York. It was controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. I really, really liked it. It's very sort of meta. Kind of all the goons very much sort of know they're in a movie sort of thing. And the whole Mandarin twist with is it Trevor Slattery from Croydon or whatever it is. I really like that actually. I can see why people are annoyed who do actually really like the Mandarin as a character. But as I say, I'm not an Iron Man comic reader, so that didn't offend me. I just found it quite funny. And yeah, it's a good film. And I really like Rhodes actually, War Machine, I'm Patriot in this one. That's cool. It's a good film. I'd like to watch it again. I've only seen it in the cinema. But there we go. So on to the top 4, and this was quite hard for me to rank these actually. So at number 4 is this little chap again. He's come around again pretty soon, and it's Thor: The Dark World. I've got a real soft spot for this film. It very much follows the Marvel formula of kind of somebody wants something, and that baddie kind of ends up in a big old showdown, and then the heroes win obviously. Malekith's the baddie in this one, and here's my first coining of the word vanillan, which is a vanilla villain. He's sort of evil for evil's sake and a bit of a damp squib at the end of it. But that's such a minor criticism of the film because I love the film, the visuals, it's really, really funny again, as all of the kind of Phase 2 movies have been actually. They've definitely got funnier, comparing it to, say, Captain America: The First Avenger anyway. So yeah, Thor: Dark World, obviously Loki steals the show a little bit, and it's set up quite nicely for him to come back again in Thor 3, or if that's what they're doing. They haven't announced their slate at time of recording. But yeah, no, it's a really good film that I very much like, and it's got Mr. Echo in it from Lost, so that sort of sold me on that one as well. Yeah, I went to the premiere of that, so it sort of made me biased again on that front. But yeah, so that's my number 4 movie, Thor: The Dark World. Yeah, on to my number 3 movie then, and that is probably quite surprising. It is the big one, where the Hulk got pretty incredible again, and that is Avengers Assemble, or just the Avengers. Yeah, here it is, got a pretty cool cover on that one. Yeah, this obviously brought together everything that had come before. This was the plan all along from Iron Man in 2008. It's a brilliant film, it's really well juggled. Joss Whedon brings these characters together, gives them their moments, gives them enough time to breathe. It's obviously all characters we know and love by this stage, and it's just an incredible film. It's in many ways just the perfect sort of superhero film, I guess. It's very much what DC want to do with the Justice League film, and I don't know how they're going to be able to top that, to be honest, because it's just a brilliant, brilliant film. Obviously it featured the death of Phil Coulson, who's now come back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's another criticism I'd say, just to pepper this whole thing with some criticisms as well, as kind of praising them all. They haven't really killed anyone off yet. Frigga, I think her name is, Thor's mum, is the only one they've really killed off. And in that meantime we've had Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury die but not die. We've had Phil Coulson in this die but not die. Loki again in Thor: Dark World. So that's something they're going to have to sort of address pretty soon, I think. But we shall see. So that's my number 3 then, so we're on to my top 2. So, on to my top 2, and I found it really, really difficult to place these two. On the one hand, I feel like my head wants one to win and my heart wants another. I think one is a slightly better film than the other one, but one is just much more fun. So, I'm going to go with, as it's my list of favourites, not best, my number 2 movie is featuring this little chap, and also this legend as well. It's Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which came out this year. So that gives away immediately what my number 1 is, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So Captain America: The Winter Soldier follows on from the first one and from Avengers. It's obviously Cap's standalone Phase 2 movie, directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, who I knew from Community, and they brought Abed with them as well, who cameos in this film. But it's an amazing film. I wasn't that hyped about it until I saw that boat sequence. They released, I think, about 10 minutes of the film beforehand, and they showed it when we went to cinema to see something else. And the action in this film is incredible. It's the best action of any of these Marvel films. There's some funny moments, there's some great Black Widow moments, and then Sam Wilson again as the Falcon I do really, really love. But in the way that Thor is sort of overshadowed by by Loki. It's Bucky in this film that is really great as the Winter Soldier. He's yeah, it's just he's just really good in it. I really like his character. They call back to the first Captain America film with the sort of "I'll be with you to the end of the line, pal" line. And yeah, it's a really good film. Sebastian Stan's great in it. It's got a really good cast all the way down. They do some good aging work on Hayley Atwell as well. And yeah, I think kind of Cap wasn't really one of my favourites from the Avengers, to be honest, but he's really kind of coming to his own now. And since the Avengers, they've really upped the game, Marvel. All of the films coming afterwards have been right up there in my list, and I'm sure many people's lists. It's the best Thor film, the best Iron Man film, and the best Captain America film have all come post-Avengers once we've got to know the character. And it was, yeah, a great choice of directors in the Russos. So my number one film is, I don't have any figures for this because it's only just come out last week, it is Guardians of the Galaxy. I already own the soundtrack because the soundtrack is a major part of this film. Anyone who's even seen the trailer with Hooked on a Feeling will know that. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy is in many ways the least connected of these films. Obviously the Collector was sort of at the end of Thor Dark World in the credits. But that's about as far as the connections go, really. It has the biggest risk since they made Iron Man in 2008, I'd say, because it's very much an unknown property. And in the way that the Avengers built on these existing characters that everyone knew, the Guardians just skipped that whole step out, put them all in this film, introduced all the characters, all the worlds, all the planets, all these new terms and all this sort of thing, all the different alien races, just all in one film. And by the end of the film we care about the characters, we're laughing with the characters. It's a brilliant cast. The 5 Guardians themselves, obviously Peter Quill, Star-Lord, Chris Pratt's amazing. I used to hate him in the OC actually, but since then he's done amazing work, obviously in the Lego movie this year and things like Zero Dark 30, Moneyball and stuff. He's great. Zoe Saldana doesn't get as much screen time as probably I would have liked to kind of show her sort of arse-kicking ways, assassin ways, but she's really great in it. She's the kind of queen of sci-fi franchises these days, I guess, with Star Trek and Avatar. Who else we got? Drax. I absolutely love Drax. He is the most deadpan but absolutely hilarious character. Dave Bautista does an amazing job on this. I can't wait to see more Drax. Then on to Groot and Rocket, who are just incredible. They're a tree and a raccoon, and by the end of it you're kind of crying with them almost. Vin Diesel brings a lot to those 3 or maybe 4 by the end of it words. They could have just phoned in their performances, but they just do it amazingly. And by the end of the film you really care about all of these characters, and they've all been on such a journey as well, and it's just amazing. Again, it's got one of the villains, I'd say. I don't think Ronan the Accuser is a very good villain. Thanos as well, so I should say that I am spoiling some of these films if you've not seen them, but hopefully you will have seen them. So the villains are a bit damp squib, apart from Nebula, who I do really quite like, and Zondu as well. Is it Zondu his name? Michael Rooker's character? I think so. But yeah, there's a lot of characters in there that don't quite get their moment, like Glenn Close's Nova Prime, John C. Reilly's character. But I can't wait for a sequel now. I completely love Guardians of the Galaxy. I hope that the new Star Wars movie gets just a hint of this energy and excitement in that kind of space world. So yeah, that's my top 10 Marvel kind of in order. So let me know what you think. If you disagree or agree, you can let me know in the comments if you like. No one probably will, but that's cool. So roll on the next 10 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Phase 3 is going to kick off after the Avengers, which is very exciting. Age of Ultron, cannot wait for that. Ant-Man, Doctor Strange probably. Yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. Hope you've enjoyed my countdown. Let me know what you think, as I said. And yeah, roll on Marvel, and over to you, DC.